Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and welcome to Overwatch Central. We've been talking a lot about Torbjorn. The clockwork meta composition, bunker comp. Torbjorn's pick rate has gone up, so I figured now was a good time to sit down with Fuey, who is of course a well-known Torbjorn player, to see what he thinks about it, whether Torbjorn is a good hero or not, and just sort of talking about the state of him as a whole. You can check out all of Fuey's details in the description below, but let's get started. So before we start talking about what your opinions are now, Fuey, what were your opinions before of this new iteration of Torbjorn that we've got now?
So previously, old Torbjorn played to a different style of the game where diving isn't as, prevalent, faster characters aren't as prevalent. Like, as mobility creep kind of happened, old Torb kind of just got shoved in a corner where he couldn't do anything, because it took so long to set up and all that. And new Torb is really, really nice. Being able to run around, set up turret wherever you want without being tied to it, and an ultimate ability that's actually able to be comboed with other ults, and able to deny space from divers, because if they dive on it, they die, is really, really nice.
So I guess now, it's no surprise, probably mentioned it at the start of the video, Torbjorn's pick rate has gone up, along with a lot of heroes that are used in more of a conservative bunker comp kind of style. Is that a surprise to you or not?
I'm a little bit more surprised with why people play Tor, but I can kind of understand it. So I still feel like Torbjorn is one of the weaker characters, and you could pick Bastion and or Hanzo as an alternative for those bunker compositions, because Hanzo should be able to kill people easier and do better shield damage for the most part, at least on offense. It should be easier for him, and Bastion should have more straight up damage overall. So I feel like it's kind of weird that Torb's getting picked more, but at the same time, I think it's just because people figured out that he's a fun hero to play. He's able to duel people. He has the same gun damage as McCree for the most part, and he has a shotgun, so he's a really, really nice kit for DPS players.
And I guess it's more the rise of that kind of bunker comp style. Like Arisa's gone up dramatically in pick rate, Rodog has as well. I guess is that the same for you in your games? Are you starting to see more and more of these heroes and feel like you could do more on Torbjorn because of that?
Yeah, so I think that's another thing that kind of adds to why people want to pick Torb. Because they have the shield now to hide behind, it helps to keep the turret alive, it helps to keep them alive so they can output more damage. And it helps, like I said earlier with his ult, if they dive you, you have a nice shield protection, and you can just splooge everywhere. But I've seen mainly in GM Top 500 two compositions being run. Bunker and triple DPS Hammond. Both of those compositions I think work really well for Torb, because Hammond goes in, makes a distraction, does a decent chunk of damage, and then the other DPS, like hitscan DPS, help to finish off the kills that Torbjorn can't really get, fast enough, because he's not hitscan. He has travel time for his bullets. So I think in both the compositions, they really, really enable Torbjorn well.
For this video, I kind of wanted to focus on what's going on at the moment, but we do have some Torbjorn nerfs on the PTR at the moment. Are they big? Are they impactful? What do you think of them?
I would say that it is a minor nerf, but I would only say minor because, in my personal opinion, Torbjorn Shotgun has always been bad, and is generally only worth it for the faster projectile speed. Otherwise, primary fire has less downsides than the secondary fire, where secondary fire has a star pattern spread that will randomly rotate with each shot. It also has fall off damage, and it's firing pellets, so when firing at armor actually, it reduces the damage of the shotgun. Overall, a lot of shotgun, in my opinion, isn't very strong, and it's kind of weird to me that they're nerfing it due to being able to actually duel people in Overload, which is a ability that has a longer cooldown that's generally his somebody dove me, or I want to go deep for a little bit, engagement or disengagement, that helps him to at least have a fighting chance when dueling compared to other characters that have mobility, deflex, or anything else to keep them alive during that time frame, and or to kill the opponent. So Overall, I would say that it is something minor and very, very weird. It shouldn't really affect the character too much. I would still very much recommend just unbinding your right click, because it's generally just not going to be worth it with that damage amount. I did a comparison actually on Twitter of the current live Torb with the rivet gun with shotgun versus PTR shotgun, and generally after the nerf, the rivet gun does the exact same thing if you're landing your shots, and you're more likely to land your shots with rivet gun because you're not firing a bunch of pellets that are going to go out, they're going to miss, and all of that, and you have to be like pinpoint precision, close range to actually be able to land the shotgun pellets in the first place. So yeah, overall I would say it's something minor and is something that I definitely do not approve of.
You've probably heard already about the Clockwork Vendetta composition. Group of One Tricks making it through Upper Division and now in contenders for EU. They have a Torbjorn player. What have you seen of that, and what do you make of it as a whole? A Torbjorn One Trick for the most part, they have switched around a little bit, but a Torbjorn orientated player still managing to beat semi-pro players.
Yeah, so I watched a little bit of a King of the Hill match that they were actually playing, and I've heard a lot of people coming in and talking about that, and I think it's really, really cool, but it's also really, really weird. Just because I feel like Torbjorn is still a character that lacks to the point where you should be able to kind of like abuse him. Because if turret's down, it goes on a 10-second cooldown. The character himself has a decently hard time getting through those shields, and if people run bunker versus bunker, you kind of lack in shield breaks, so you rely on like the Mei to prop people up or to cut people off and all that. So it kind of feels a little bit weird to have the Torbjorn there, but it's good that he's able to actually make it work. And from what I've seen, it does seem like he kind of plays like a little bit more aggressive with turret and himself to help break those shields and help to kill people easier, and plays like a more risky style. Or what's it called? It's like he's trading more aggression for impact versus just kind of playing passive, hiding on the backside and doing all that.
Like, the synergy we made, does that make sense to you? Because I'm the same as you. I thought that it wasn't quite enough shield break damage, but considering their job, I suppose, is to try and break any form of goats that's going to run at them, it's more about trying to alleviate some of the weaknesses that bunker comps can have, I guess.
Yeah, so I think, honestly, Mei is a really, really, really good character. Wall, I think, is one of the best abilities in the game, and Mei Ultimate, so one thing that they can do is they Mei Ult, they combo into the Splooge, and instead of like, if you were to Graviton, right, they can still use their abilities and all that, but once they're frozen in Mei Ult, they die. There's nothing they can really do except hope that somebody outside of Mei Ult is able to protect them. So you can do Mei Ult combo with Torbjorn Ult, but in general, I think, like, because both of those characters are kind of semi, at least in my mind, defined as like off tanks because they have higher HP, they provide a lot of utility, they work weirdly well together, and having like a proper aggressive rotation helps to not keep them in places that are just fighting a war that they would end up losing, so they end up pushing people back because you can't really engage on the Mei because then they'll freeze you, then you'll die, or they'll wall you off. So it kind of creates this weird, nice synergy.
So do you find it weird then, considering that you feel that Torbjorn is weak in comparison to some of the other heroes that have also become a lot more popular, like Symmetra, as people have sort of highlighted how good she can be in the right hands, Bastion as well. Like, is that just the general feeling that you have, is, I don't know why players are still playing him, I still don't personally think he's that good?
Yeah, I would consider it like that, just because Torbjorn, for the most part, out of good Torbjorn players, they generally get around 40% accuracy and like 10% crit. So that's a lot of shots that are being missed. That's a lot of like inaccuracy there. That's just, you can't really change that. It's due to the projectile nature of the character. And for other characters like Hanzo being able to one-shot someone, or Bastion being able to break down shields with ease, it kind of feels weird for him to be played more, just because he doesn't do those things as easily. And he is better at, like, dueling, and his ultimate is pretty good compared to, like, Bastion ultimate. But it does kind of just feel like this weird... I think people are doing it to experiment, and I think it's because he's at least an average character now compared to what he was before, so people are doing this partly to have fun, experiment, and try something new that kind of catches people off guard.
Do you feel that there's going to get to a point where teams will work out this composition and it will just stop being effective because of it?
Yeah, I think once people realize that the Torbjorn turret, once it dies, it's got a 10-second cooldown. They're now down, I'd say, at least 1/3 of their character, being Torbjorn, and they don't have any shield break, and he can really only duel once they get close with shotgun to get, like, easy kills, or else he just backs up and then he just spam fires again. I think people will be able to eventually figure it out and start kind of taking over again from the spot with Torb, because he does provide, like, good crossfire, which is what I mentioned, kind of like with the Hammond comp, so that kind of works well. But like with Bunker, if you run your shield, your Bastion, your Baptiste, he can't kill the Frisbee fast enough, he can't kill the shield fast enough, and to kill Bastion that's getting healed, it's really difficult. Even with your ultimate, the ultimate actually doesn't reach the Frisbee for some reason, so they can just sit in it. And there's plenty of things like that people probably don't know, so they probably get up, they move out of the Frisbee, and then they go die to the rest of the ult because they're like, oh no, I'm taking damage, that eventually will get found out.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about was one-tricking. Of course, you've sort of become the sort of well-known person that has perpetrated one-tricking, I guess, to an extent. A good portion of this team was scouted out for being Torbjorn May one-tricks and stuff like that, so that team specifically was looking for players that are very, very good on these heroes, and they put down the fact that they one-trick and play a lot of those heroes almost exclusively to the reason why they won out so much, because they were so good on those niche heroes. What's your perspective of one-tricking now? Because personally, I feel that people don't care half as much as they used to.
So it kind of depends for me, because I've kind of flexed up a little bit. I play more Hammond, and I'll play some other things when things are going pretty downhill morale-wise. So I think overall, though, at least less people have been toxic. There's still some stuff like that going on, and all that kind of stuff, but I think overall people are getting at least a little bit better. I think it's just a general problem that you're going to come with in any game when there's some sort of, like, obscure strategy happening.
Do you think people's attitude shifting from being really toxic for you being Torbjorn is more to do with Torbjorn just being a lot better in the game than he was before, or just over time people are more relaxed, I suppose it would be?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, like, people hated me for playing Torb mainly because he was one of the worst characters in the game. And even if you make it play well, they feel like they're still at a disadvantage because they're like, oh, well, why don't you just play Hanzo, even though you don't have the hours on Hanzo? Or, oh, why don't you play Widow? So they kind of, like, want to use the scapegoat, and they use the fact that they have a bad hero, even though he's playing to his maximum efficiency, which is that ranking. They kind of use that as their, oh, that's why we're losing, that's what's going on here. We're at an innate disadvantage, even though the disadvantage becomes just doesn't exist because of the fact that you've spent so much time learning that character. So I think it's mainly because Torbjorn's getting better, people care less, and they'll probably pick on the next character that ends up being worse if people end up, one-tricking or playing that character mainly.
What do you think is going to happen now with Torbjorn? Do you think his pick rate is still going to keep going up, or do you think that this is almost like a fad that's going to run out after a certain amount of time?
It kind of feels like a fad, but at the same time, I kind of feel like his pick rate will go up just because he is a fun character, and he's a character that can do a lot of things. He can both be a ranged DPS, or he can be a duelist, or he can be a flanker. He has so many options that I think players will start to realize they can do pretty much anything with him, and he fits any real playstyle, like, perfectly. He does now have the 250 base HP, that helps him out a ton, so he's not this squishy DPS like all the other ones anymore. So he's kind of set apart from the other DPS which I think will make more people in turn play him in the long run, and be less of a fad and more of a, like, he'd be like a middle pick, like something that's picked on the side, something that's picked occasionally, not like up there meta, almost picked every game. I can see that kind of happening.
I guess finally then, what other things do you want to see sort of coming out of the Torbjorn comps? Any changes to the hero, I guess, as well, before we sort of finish up?
So, for changes to the character that I would personally really enjoy, I think that they should still change the healing to the turret, either make his hammer heal more so there's actual value to it, or just get rid of the hammer, make the turret heal by itself. Another thing would be a quality of life thing where he could cancel his ultimate, because if you ult, you're actually stuck in your ultimate until you use it all up, which is really bad because if people want to focus on you, then they will, and they can. You're going to die if you don't use it all up situation where you're kind of weak, you can't even activate your E. So normally I'll activate Overload before I ult to give me that extra HP and movement speed, because you can't use that during it. And there's like a lot of quality of life changes that would be really nice, like turret targeting. It'd be really nice if turret actually targeted low HP heroes to help finish them off for you. It'd be really nice if you could kind of have better turret targeting, because yeah, it'll hit whoever Torbjorn hits, but I feel like base turret targeting is pretty bad overall in general, and it's kind of just stuff like that that would be really nice to get changed for the character.
I guess finally then, is there any other final things that you wanted to point out?
Yeah. Okay, so the only final things I kind of want to point out is that I hope that the people that are trying Torbjorn out and all this are enjoying him and kind of realize he's a little bit better of a character than most people thought, but he's not that great, and he still has his downsides like every other character. And that, yeah, I think that's kind of it. Unless a pro team wants to hit me up, you know?
And I guess finally then, where can people see more of you? Maybe trying out for pro teams, but where can people see more of you?
So the main place that people can see more of me is twitch.tv/Fuey500. I also have a YouTube, but that's mainly highlights. And you can follow Twitter, you know, all that stuff.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. As I said, you can check out all the Fuey stuff in the description below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, and I'll see you next time.